everyone, this is the Science Chick and welcome to my video. Firstly, before I even start, I want to apologize for taking so long to produce this video. Honestly, I can understand why you guys are asking about evolution because shoot, I forgot how hectic evolution can be. And also, I am a full-time master student, so I am doing my masters, I'm doing my experiment work, I'm doing all that jazz, so I am also very busy. But I also wanted to take the time to make the video for you guys. But if you feel this video doesn't really give you the information you feel like you need, on my community tab, I did post a playlist by Miss Alanger. Sorry if I say the lady's name wrong, but she is an actual life science teacher. So she made like topic videos of all the things that you guys need for your exam period. So if you feel like my explanation is like complete doo-doo, you can just go to her videos and I think she can help you a bit better. But I wanted to finish out the series that I completely failed on. By just doing my evolution topic. So this will be the video 1 of evolution and it'll be just an introductory video on evolution. The second video will be focusing more on human evolution. As you guys know, this section actually counts a big chunk of your paper too, about 54% of it. So yeah, it is a big thing to get through. So I hope this video can be a good additional help to it. But before I ramble on even further, let's get right into the topic of this video. So today's video is an introductory video to evolution. The things that I will be talking about today are the origin of the idea of origins, theories of evolution, Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection, formation of a new species, artificial selection, mechanisms of reproductive isolation, and evolution in present time. But before we get into the topics, we first must understand the difference between a theory and a hypothesis. A theory is an explanation of something that has been observed in nature, which can be supported by facts, generalizations, tested hypotheses, models, as well as laws. A hypothesis is a possible solution to a problem. The theory of evolution has been developed over many years by many different scientists and is regarded as a scientific theory since various hypotheses related to evolution have been tested and verified over time. The word evolution simply means changes over time. Evolution is the process by which organisms develop over time from early forms. Biological evolution refers to any genetic change in a population that is inherited and becomes a characteristic of that population. Biological evolution refers to any genetic changes in a population that is inherited and becomes a characteristic of that population over several generations. Current evidence of evolution includes fossils, biogeography, genetics, and other evidence such as embryology and comparative anatomy. Topics like fossils and biogeography were covered in your grade 10 curriculum, so if you want more in-depth coverage on that, I would suggest looking over your grade 10 textbooks. But today we'll be mainly focusing on the genetic components of evolution. The study of genetics deals with the similarities in and the differences of related organisms. Genetic evidence that organisms are closely related and are likely to have a common ancestor include identical DNA structure, similar sequence of genes, similar portions of genes with no function, and similar mutations. Species that are closely related have a greater similarity to each other than more distantly related species. There is also some degree of variation between individuals of the same species in each population. These variations can be caused by crossing over during prophase 1 of meiosis, random arrangement of maternal and paternal chromosomes, random fertilization, and random mating, as well as mutations. The most significant advocates for the idea that species are not stagnant but have changed over time were Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck and Charles Darwin. Of these, Charles Darwin is best known, particularly as a result of his famous book, The Origin of Species. However, Lamarck played a significant role in establishing the theory of evolution. Jean-Baptiste Lamarck was a naturalist and proposed that species were not fixed, but they change over time. During his investigations, he observed that living species were different to those found in fossil records. Domestication of wild plants and animals and selective breeding resulted in plants and animals changing. And crossbreeding plants often led to new characteristics appearing in the offsprings. Lamarck is best known for his two laws, the law of use and disuse and the law of inheritance of acquired characteristics. In his law of use and disuse, Lamarck suggested that animals changed over time in order to survive a new environment. He argued that if a structure was used more, the structure would become bigger in the following generations. Similarly, if a structure was not used, then these structures would become smaller and might even disappear. This was the basis of his law of use and disuse. In the law of inheritance of acquired characteristics, Lamarck explains that organisms could inherit these changed structures from their parents. Characteristics developed during the life of an individual, acquired characteristics, could be passed on to their offsprings. A classic example that Lamarck used to explain his law of use and disuse was the elongation of a giraffe's neck. According to Lamarck, the original giraffes must have found themselves in an environment where, in order to reach food at the top tree, they constantly needed to stretch their necks. Over a lifetime, a giraffe could develop an elongated neck, allowing it to get more food. Parents could then pass on this elongated neck to their offspring. However, Lamarck was proven wrong over time. Lamarck argued that traits acquired from parents could be passed to their offsprings. He did, however, not provide any mechanisms of how this could happen, merely stating that changes happened because an organism wanted or needed it to happen. We now know that changes to an organism can only come about as a result of genetic changes, which then are passed down to the offspring. For this reason, Lamarckism is not accepted today as an explanation for evolutionary change. His work, however, did set the groundwork for scientists like Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin of evolution by natural selection is one of the basic concepts of understanding evolution, and it's based on the 4 observations made by him while on his around-the-world trip on the ship the HMS Beagle. These observations were: populations can produce far more offsprings than needed. Sizes of most natural populations and resources remain relatively constant. There is a natural variation of characteristics among members of the same species, and some characteristics are inherited and passed down to the next generation. Based on his observation, Darwin came to 3 main conclusions. Firstly, that all organisms are involved in a struggle for survival, and only those best suited for the environment would survive. Secondly, organisms that survive are more likely to reproduce, therefore passing these useful characteristics to their offsprings. And lastly, over many generations, reproduction between individuals with different genetic makeup changes the overall genetic composition of the population. Natural selection is one of the mechanisms that explain how evolution takes place. Those organisms that are best suited for a particular environment produce the most offsprings. This is commonly referred to as survival of the fittest, where the fittest does not mean the strongest, but the one best suited for the environment. Some species are better equipped to face the changing conditions of their environment. Such changes include the type and availability of food and shelter, competition, or predators. Having a favorable trait that is suitable for the changing environment leads to the formation of a new species, also known as speciation. Natural selection always acts on variation already present in a population, and the environment is the selective pressure for change. The table below gives a generic explanation on how natural selection works. Firstly, there is a lot of variation among offsprings as offspring differ from their parents. When the environment changes or there is competition, for example for food or shelter, the offsprings with the characteristics or traits that make them better suited for the new environment or competition will most likely survive and reproduce. The offsprings without the desired characteristics or trait are less likely to survive in the new environment or competition and therefore will die out. This means that more offsprings in the next generation will have the advantageous characteristics. The next generation will have a higher proportion of individuals with the new traits or characteristics. These differences accumulate and eventually all individuals in a population will have the new characteristic or trait. Lamarckism and Darwinism are not the only theories of evolution that were presented. Punctuated equilibrium refers to a form of evolution characterized by long periods of little to no changes, followed by short periods of rapid change. This concept was developed by Niles Eldredge and Stephen Jay Gould in 1972. Darwin proposed that species evolved gradually with small changes over a period of time. This is called gradualism. In gradualism, the phenotypical changes of a population change gradually because of the accumulation of small genetic changes. Eldredge and Gould noticed that in fossil records, there would be long periods of time where species had no change or little change. This was intercepted by periods of rapid change. Accordingly, a new species formed over a short period of time. The main evidence of this type of evolution was the absence of transitional fossils. The formation of a new species is known as speciation. We have already learned that variations in individuals is caused by sexual reproduction, genetic mutations, crossover, random arrangement, etc. If enough of these variations occur and are kept within a population, the more likely it is that a species can be changed. Every population has some form of genetic variation, and these variations are important as they increase a species' chances of surviving in changing environments. Geographic speciation is one way speciation can occur. Geographical speciation occurs when part of a population becomes isolated from the parent population due to a physical barrier. Such barriers could be the continental drift, oceans, rivers, mountains, or other natural disruptions such as volcanoes or earthquakes. The images that I'm about to show you will give you an idea on how geographical speciation can occur. In the early stages of speciation, we can see that individuals are separated from the parent population by the small river. This separation, however, is not deep enough or strong enough to completely isolate the individuals from their parent population, meaning that they can still able to cross over from the river to get to their parent population. In the later stages of isolation, the landscape features alter over time. The river becomes wider and deeper and flows year-round, resulting in a geographic isolation. As a result, the genetic flow between the two populations stops, and the two populations are exposed to different environmental conditions. Natural selection now takes place individually in each of the two populations. Over time, speciation finally occurs. The climate changes over time, altering the landscape again. The river has dried up and has enabled the two species to interact with one another again. However, since these are two new species now, they are not able to breed with one another. Humans have long exploited the variation in wild and cultivated organisms to develop crops or new breeds of livestock through a process called artificial selection. Artificial selection is a human-driven selective force and occurs at a faster rate than natural selection. Favorable traits are artificially selected by scientists and farmers and then bred out to produce offsprings with those traits. Artificial selection mimics natural selection, with the exception that artificial selection is much faster and results in less variation than natural selection. We see artificial selection in domesticated animals as well as in crops. For example, all dog variants originate from the grey wolf. The first few domesticated wolves would have been selected for traits such as tameness, submissiveness, and the ones that could easily be worked with. 5 ancient breeds of dog arose from the interbreeding, which gave rise to the large number of distinct dog breeds we have today. The extremely large genetic variety in the ancestral species made it a perfect choice for domestication, as different traits could be expressed under different selective pressures. Pedigree dogs, which are dogs born from 2 dogs of the same species, sometimes suffer from deformations and can be vulnerable to disease and parasites. This is due to their decreased genetic variation. Mongrel dogs or mutts or pavement specials are dogs that were outbred, so their genetic variation is far greater than purebred dogs. This makes mongrel dogs quite robust, and they do not die very easily from natural diseases or pesticides, and they are very fertile. Domestication in plants results in a wide variety of new species with large phenotypical differences among species. Most of these crops are very dependent on humans for survival. The domestication of maize is one of the greatest success stories of agriculture. The modern-day maize plant was bred from multi-stemmed wild grass. Over the past 1,000 years, farmers selected and planted seeds from these maize corns that had greater ears of corn and required less space to grow. Over time, all undesirable traits were bred out of the plant, leaving only large ears of corn and less stem. The table below shows the main difference between natural and artificial selection. We can see that the main differences of these 2 types of selection are the selective force, the selection response, and in how many species it can occur. The table below shows the mechanisms of reproductive isolation. Reproductive isolation is a mechanism that prevents 2 species from mating with one another and making a fertile hybrid, even when not separated by geographic barriers. Some mechanisms are used mostly to separate species that live in the same environment. These mechanisms include breeding different times of the year, species-specific courting behavior, abduction of different pollinizers, and infertile offsprings in cross-species hybrids. Evolution happens all the time. Most of the time, it is impossible to observe changes in a population and species because evolution happens very slowly. That's the theory of gradualism. However, in some cases, for example, rapid production of organisms such as viruses and bacteria, that have allowed scientists to study how species change to environmental factors. Pathogens like viruses and bacteria evolve quickly because there are a lot of natural variations among them, and the fact that mutations occur most often in rapidly producing organisms. Tuberculosis is a chronic bacterial infection caused by the bacterium Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Unfortunately, the incidence of this disease keeps increasing in South Africa. Treatment of tuberculosis is commonly in the form of antibiotics. However, some bacteria are naturally resistant to these antibiotics. TB has become more and more common in South Africa recently, and it is primarily due to the fact that patients do not finish the full course of antibiotics, and the naturally resistant bacteria then survives and reproduce. The patient will then develop TB again, except this time, most of the bacteria is now resistant to the previous antibiotic, and so treatment will not help them anymore. Patients would then have to be placed on a stronger antibiotic to kill the resistant bacteria. It is becoming common practice to treat TB patients with multi-drugs at the same time. It is assumed that the bacteria would not develop resistance to multiple drugs at the same time. Unfortunately, this assumption was wrong. The TB bacterium becomes resistant to multiple drugs, causing an emergence of multi-drug resistant bacteria. Multi-drug resistant bacteria now requires a very aggressive treatment using 5 different types of drugs, and often patients with this type of TB do not survive. That will be the end of the introductory video to evolution. I hope this was helpful. As I say in all my videos, all diagrams figures will be in the notes that I have here in the Google Drive, and please comment down below if there's anything you guys need help with. I also want to maybe do a vlog type of thing, kind of showing you a day in life of a master's student. If that is something that would interest you, please let me know and I will try to make it happen. But anyway, thank you so much for watching all this way, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.